Good morning, everyone. Jill here. Thank you for joining me. Come on in, get your cup of coffee, or perhaps you prefer tea. Get your tea and settle down in your comfy chair. And let's see what we're going to do today. Well, today my video is going to do the next page of our stitch book. So we have done 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was December. Although, remember, I keep calling them December, but that's not the intent. Seasonally, it didn't matter what month I started in or what month I'm ending in. The idea was that I have 12 when I'm finished. You know, I had to set some parameters, so it doesn't mean I won't make another one sometime down the road. Okay, so today we're going to do the next one in our series, and I am going to do it on a beige fabric. But before we get started on that, I have a little surprise for you. I wanted to show you, I think many of you who watch the video of my stitch book also were watching my little snippet roll. It was a kind of a big snippet roll. Let me see. It was, 6 inches tall, and then however long it was. And as I went along, I was approaching the end of working on it, and I thought, what am I going to do? Do I want to do something with it? Because certainly a snippet roll can become many things. But I thought, why not make it a little book? And I was so happy with the way this turned out. So in the last video where I showed this, I think I showed how I kind of was rolling up and folding over the pages to make the pages of this book. So I thought I would spend a minute and show you what I've done. One thing I did was, this is sari silk, and I stitched on it. Can you see the stitching? Let me bring it up close. I did running stitch. I felt like I wanted to make it a little more stable. So I did running stitch all the way around the whole thread. Because of the way that the book was created by a snippet roll, which was just a long piece of fabric, I did attach both pieces of the closure to the front here, just wrapping one, making one longer than the other, and wrapping the one all the way around so that I had enough to make the bow over here on this side. Now, does that make sense? I have lots of shadows today. It's very early in the morning, and I am up and at it. Sip of coffee helps. Okay, so here's my snippet roll book. Look at this, how cute it came out. And I used my snippet roll for all the pages, front and back. So here we go. If you recall, this was actually the end of my snippet roll. And you can see how I made it into pages. Now, when I got done with the pages, I did do blanket stitch all around the edges to close them up. Now, I don't know if I will, but I can still stitch in this because I can feel when the needle goes through but doesn't go clear to the back, right? Here's the next page. I'll hold it up so you can see some of the other stitching if you haven't seen this before, if you're new here. If you're seen all these, skip ahead. I did little tiny seed stitch inside of there. I think I showed you that. I did add my little bit of beads here. You see a little bit of beads. And yeah, I didn't do it on just one. I did it on all, I think I did it on all 3 of those. We'll turn the page. My little star flowers there. But look how neat this came out. And all I did was running stitch down each of these pages to initially hold them together, making sure that each page was the same width. So when you close the book, you have a nice even side here. So there's my little beads there. And then I did go in, and I didn't want to use the gold in the center of this flower. So I just did stitching within those little segments with a off-white cotton. And I can come in and I may do some more stitching around those later, but for now I consider this done. And here's my other flowers with the little beads in the center. Okay, so again, just a running stitch there. Yes, Mia, honey, I see you. My little fluffy dog. She's going to be 18 in March, and she still romps around, and she's climbing on my leg. She wants a treat. I may have to pause you and let her out. Just 1 minute. Yeah, that seems to have done it. She zoomed outside, so we'll see when she comes back how she's doing. Keeping an eye on her these days. She is getting older, but she still runs and jumps, and the biggest concern now is if she jumps and then falls and hurts herself. I have those little beads inside of there. Now, when I made these pages, I didn't worry about where the pages fell that I folded in half. So this, if you can imagine, one long piece, I just made sure that from one end, each page was, what did I say? When I folded them, they're actually 4 3/4, that every 4 3/4, 4 3/4, and then fold it. Flip the roll over, 4 3/4, 4 3/4, stitch it and fold it so that every segment was 4 3/4 inches wide. And then this was this page. I love this page because I love that stitching there. Oops. The worries and scurries of videotaping these. Look at that. And then this is the back and the spine. Actually, the running stitches to hold the pages in the center are stitched right next to each other. I did not worry about, are they even distance apart? Are they, how many stitches am I making, so that they're the same, because I did heavily stitch this whole thing. So you can't really see where the stitches are for the spine, but they're there. And in real life, I can see a few of them. Like here, let me show you. You can hardly see, but see those little light colored ones? Those are actually the spine of one of the, in the middle of the pages that I sewed in there. And I just thought this came out so cute. So I did want to share that with you. And I appreciate all of you who made comments and and told me to keep going. And look how I'm so pleased with it. So thank you so much for keeping me going and for giving me feedback and for encouraging me to carry on when I thought, I don't like this anymore. And I hear that some of the videos I watch and the people I watch, they always say, just keep going. And you know what? I did. There's my little bow, as good as it's going to be for now. And it's cute. So there's my cutie little snippet roll in a book. Okay. So thank you for watching that segment if you haven't already fast forwarded to what we're going to get going on today. So back to this project. Okay, today we're going to work on my next page. And I had a viewer ask me if I could spend some more time showing you, how do I create the pages and how do I pick the stitches and things like that. Because on most of these I've done, well, this one has a variety of stitches on. That's the first one I did. And then I kind of thought, well, maybe I'm going to focus on certain stitches for certain pages. I think I mentioned that to you as well. And then Christmas came along and I did some wrapping of running stitches and such like that. So usually how I start is I make one of my pages and I just make these out of, I can give you the measurements for this as well. These are 5 by 5 3/4 inches. And I wanted them to be small because I wanted my book to be able to, hold my hand, flip open the pages, check the stitches. And it's just easier if I see, one stitch used different ways. This stitch here, and then where's this page with the running stitch and then and the chain stitch, and then wrapping the running stitch one way and then wrapping the running stitch both ways. I thought that was, so that I could see on a page what the variations I might like are, So let's go into how I make this. I cut a piece of cloth, 5 by 5.75, and that's what this back piece is. Okay, I did that. And then I cut what looks like my spine and this ticking. This is 2 inches. There's an inch on the front and there's an inch on the back. So I just folded those in half so that I could slip them over. Now I do have a little small piece of wadding in the middle, cut the same size as this. And the front piece, I used white fabrics, I use different fabrics. You can use whatever you have. Don't go get new. I didn't have enough white or I didn't have enough beige, so I just said, okay, we'll do every other page, every other color, something like that. And so once I had that, I did stitch around this edge. But first of all, I put the spine on and I whip stitched it on so it would stay on. Now some people might do that last, and that's fine. This order is my order. Is it the right order? Oh heavens, I don't know. It worked for me, so I was happy to use it. The other reason I put these on first was I wanted to be sure that my pages didn't creep over too far and then impact putting the spines on. The other thing I did then, I took little grommets and I used a Japanese hole punch. And you don't have to, you can punch your holes with anything, but a Japanese hole punch actually turns. When you push on it, it spins and it's very sharp and it cuts the fabric through. So I did that. It makes clean edges, so I really liked how that worked. And then I put the grommets in. And then once that was all in, I could running stitch around the whole piece and up the side. So now I have my a portrait picture of the space I have to use. Okay. So the next thing I had to do was pick some fabric or little pieces of scraps. And here's where it gets interesting. So let me move a couple things aside because my desk is a plethora of a lot of things sitting here. So I will set this aside for right now. And I will come show you. Let's look at where I have scraps. I have scraps many places. For those of you who've seen some of my other videos, you have seen my Japanese rice bag. I have a video out there showing how I made these. Some of the Wonky Birds one is just a show and tell. I think this is mostly a show and tell. But I'm probably up in your face there. And I made the inside of this one dark because I knew I was going to be putting little off-white scraps in here that I might use for a project. So, ooh, that's too gray. But how am I picking these? Well, if I want to use a neutral color, I'm kind of into neutral colors. I'm doing another project with the neutral colors, and I really like it. But they can't be all the same shader. And especially for this, it wouldn't show the stitches when we get done, right? But I think I like that. And did I get my scissors? I was using them yesterday. Famous last words. I was using them yesterday, but today it's like, who's the guy in the Popeye commercial? I gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Something like that. That's a Popeye. Okay, so of course that isn't, still make that smaller, we'll see. So I start picking a few pieces of fabrics. This is one of my wonky birds where I hold scraps, okay? Let me get into some smaller pieces and I'll show you what I have over there. This holds my little basket. Of course, it holds my hoop, which we don't need. And it holds a lot of little scraps that, you know what I didn't anticipate? When you start stitching, when I started out, I had scraps. And of course, everybody has scraps. But as I used a piece of like this material, I would have small pieces and big pieces, and I would wrap those all together. So if I wanted that fabric, that color, everything was together. And then as I got more and more pieces and more fabrics, of course I don't want to go back and find this particular pack, so I'd make a new pack. But what I have found out along the way is now I'm dividing my scraps. I'm dividing them into tiny scraps. Hello, Mama Bowl. I have a video how to make these fabric bowls. Hello, Mama Bowl. You hold some of my little scraps. Hello, Papa Bowl. You hold some of my lace scraps that are a little bit larger. And now I sort my scraps by size. So this basket has not been gone through yet. So some of what is in here is going to be finding a new home. Do I want to use any? That's pretty stark, isn't it? That's black felt. Oh, I like this. It's just a cottony, I think this is a Polly Wolly Esther. This is a nice piece. Look at the texture in that. I like that. Oh, it's not too white. That would go. Let's see. Oh, look at that. I have a little piece of ticking. Do we want to use that? I know what stitch I'm going to use. Oh, that's that ticking. I don't know if I want to put that on there. And this is the part that takes me a while. So if you want to fast forward through the video so you don't have to watch me picking scraps out of a scrap basket, please feel free and do that. Oh, this would be a good piece maybe. And maybe something like that. Finding some interesting pieces in here. And that. I think with the stitches I'm going to just do another collage, or, you know, not really a, what do I want to call it? Just piecing. Rather like appliqué on here. I'm not going to use any blue jean material or things like that. So this we're going to use, and we can start with these. Let me check this. I love that little fabric, but I don't know if that piece will work. Oh, I could use a piece of this. This was a piece off the snippet book. Oh yeah, I love that. We'll use that. I go, like it's yummy, and it is yummy. It's yummy, yummy. Oh, and this is that other little lace, but I've already used that in one. Let me think. Mia, honey, you already went out and you ate. You had your little vitamin. What you want? You go lay down. Can you go eat? Mommy's videoing. Yes, honey. Yes. Oh, she's such a sweet girl. Evan and Lily just love her. Okay, I think that will do nicely. Let's see what we have here and spread them out. So now I simply take these pieces and I'm going to arrange them on here in some fashion. And, you know, is there a oh, we have to say, now see, that goes in the tiny, what should we call it? Tiny fragments bowl. Where's baby bowl? There's baby bowl. Okay. So, and I just place them where I think I might want them. to start with. And I do stitch them down with invisible stitch because when I'm doing my sample stitches, I want the pieces to be stable so that I don't have to worry about that. Just a minute while I take care of my little girl. Be right back. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out some of these, make some smaller, some larger. I may overlap them. I'm trying to think how the stitch I chose is going to work if I overlap these. So I may, but give me a couple minutes. I will come back and then show you the layout, and I will invisible base these down, and then I will be back. Okay, so I thought I would come back and show you. I've laid out my little scraps here, and I thought I would show you this before I invisible stitch these down so that they stay. Now, I know what stitch I'm going to use. I am going to use a blanket stitch and variations of blanket stitch. A lot of people don't care for it. It's rather, sometimes it can look utilitarian, I guess is the word I want to say. It's not a fancy stitch in any way, but it can be. And that's what intrigued me about that stitch. I was going to see if I could show you. This is the, if you can see here, this very, very little white thread across the top of these pages, that is blanket stitch. So I thought, well, let's try blanket stitch. Now, if you're not interested in blanket stitch, then I thank you for joining me this long, and I hope that you'll stick around to see the rest and see what's finished. I don't know what color thread I'm going to use. Of course, I have a nice little selection of threads here on my little clothespins, as I think some people call them, pegs. So I want to use these. I want to use things I have. That's my goal for this year. I'm trying to use things I have and not introduce any new things into my craft room, other than if I don't count things like if I do tea dyeing and things like that, because I would be introducing a new color into my fabrics. But I like this little red piece. Home is where the heart is, and red always reminds me of the heart. And I like this little piece with that little pink flower, so that's going there. And I think I see some wonderful spots for some interesting blanket stitch. So now I'm going to go ahead and invisible stitch this down, and then we'll be back, select some threads for the blanket stitch, and move forward from there. Okay, so I thought I would show you a little bit of my invisible based, which is a common stitch that is used to hold down your fabric while you're, so that you can remove the pins and they are not in your way for any further fancy stitching or whatever you want to do. I also wanted to show you and mention that because this piece is thick, my invisible based, I'm not going clear through this fabric. So what does that mean? It means if you don't want to assemble your page first, you don't have to. You can assemble it last, so you can work on all of this and not have to worry about not going through to the back, and then put it together with your front piece all stitched and then put on your back piece. But I didn't do it that way, obviously, so I am careful to not go through clear through to the back on my invisible stitch. So where am I at? I am right-handed, so I stitch right to left, and I've already done one row here and come up to here. Can you see where my thread is at? I hope so. And I'm going to continue on. So where my thread comes out, I am going to go back, do a little back stitch. Oops, my thread keeps getting twisty. And this is just a sewing machine cotton thread that I'm using. So I'm right there, and this is very hard to see because my basting thread is almost the same color as the background. I'm going to go back and do a back stitch, just a couple stitches behind where I came out, and then go, depending on the width, like there my cloth is, this piece isn't too wide, so I'm going to just go about a 1/2 inch and then pull it through. Okay, so that's that stitch. And I'll do another one and then I'll show you the back. So go back a couple threads. It's very tiny. I can't see it, right? And I believe Jude Hill uses this a lot, and this invisible back stitch. And I know she's given credit for having coined it and created it and taught it. So, but it's a very effective stitch. That little back stitch gives it some security, and the moving forward allows you to get your basting on without very little issue. And I want to show you how tiny that, I bet you can't even hardly see that tiny little stitch. So I'm going to continue on and come up and go back over, and then I'm going to come up and go down there, and then I will be back and we'll start our fancy stitching. Okay, so my invisible baste is done. I think my pieces are down enough that all the edges are enough that I can move forward with the other stitching. Yeah, I think that looks good. Let me turn it over and show you the back of the piece. So that's the front. You really can't see those stitches at all. Used a very neutral color thread. And flip it over, and you cannot see the little fuzzies on there from my mat, but you cannot see the stitches coming through. And where I started, I think I started down here in this corner. I was able to bury that knot down here, and when I finished up I was over on this side, so I carried my thread over to behind the binding and brought it up over there so it wouldn't show. And then I removed all of my pins, and now I'm ready to move on to doing some blanket stitch. And the first blanket stitch I want to do is just a regular blanket stitch, and I would just want to do up this edge. Now, how do I know where to start and finish? I don't. Do I plan it out ahead of time? Like, did I take something and figure out how I'm going to lay all this out and where I'm going to put blanket stitch and so on? No, I don't do that with these. These are very simple little pieces. They're just for me, for my reference. And I kind of go, where do I want to start? Well, when I laid this down, this straight edge, I don't really care for that straight edge. I love all these little frayed edges. But for this straight edge, it was too stark for me. So I know that, I don't know, when I looked at it, it says, hey, start here. So I'm going to start there. And I don't know what color thread I'm going to use, so that may take me a little time to decide. Like I said, this is raw edge. I love using raw edge, and you'll see it. We look back at the stitch book, you'll see that I'm going from very, what I'll call traditional piecing and squares and you know, making it all even and such, that I do move on to a more scrappy look. This is more what I like, so we'll see how this page works out in the book and go from there. So let me take a minute to find my thread, and we'll start the blanket stitch. Okay, the next one we're going to do is a shell blanket shell stitch, and it is using blanket stitch to create these little segments of a shell. And I have used my heat soluble pen to make a curve. So you want a quarter of a circle. quarter of a circle. And then I drew a little dot. I just put a little dot there to show me, but I don't have to make them that long. It just guides me to where maybe I want to go. And this one is relatively easy, so I shouldn't have too much problems with it when I'm done. And this is a tip I have for some of you. I don't like to iron any more than the next person unless you're someone who loves to iron. But I have a heat gun. Let me show you. Actually, you know what? I'll try to do that one because there is a line underneath that. So I have a heat gun. And, well, let me take this away. I'll just show you this. And it takes about, so for 2 seconds, I don't have to go to the iron. I just pull that out, heat that up, and there, my blue ink is gone. And you can buy the pen thing, which I also have. Where is one? This one? Nope. I think it's in my drawer. Hold on, I'll show you. Oh, here we go. So you can buy these pen holders. This is a friction pen. And then put these refills in it. And it also has my blue ink in it, but I tend to just pick up the refills and draw my line that I have to follow. And if you do it for a long enough time, it won't leave a shadow or anything. I'll put my little dot back. And then when I'm done, I'll just heat gun and that will go away. So let's do this. Okay, so here's my quarter circle. Here is my center. Thank you for bearing with me while I think about it. And on this stitch, especially where I'm putting it, I have to be careful about the tension. So I'm going to maybe make my center right about there. And I'm going to, so I started at the end of my circle, or my quarter circle, go to the center, which is this little point here. I guess I could use something else to point because that's kind of hard. To make this little point here, I go down in the center here. And then however wide you want, maybe I'll make these a little wider. You just come up there, be sure your thread is underneath your needle and pull it up. And there's your first little piece of the shell. Go back. And that's what I said about the tension. As if you hold it pretty consistently, you won't end up with little bubbles under your fabric, but I'm not always great at that. I tend to pull, I want to say I'm pretty rough. There, look at that. And that's a blanket stitch. I just love it. So you come out on your circle. You go down in the center as close as you can get. You come up on the circle, be sure your thread is underneath, and pull through. Look at that, so cute. And this is another variation of blanket stitch that, yes, I would use this. I would use this to make circles, not just a quarter circle. I would make the full circle, but my pieces are small. It's enough to be representative of the stitch itself. And I'm going to do one more. And then I'll show you how I actually wish I had put this in my snippet roll also because I like this stitch a lot. Okay, and then to finish this off, you just go down on the last stitch. Let me turn it this way. And I'm going to go down under here because I want to anchor my stitch under there as well. Yikes. Get it anchored enough that I'm happy with it. Okay. Now you notice I'm coming up where I've stitched. So I've got to be careful when I cut these that I don't cut the other stitching. Just a minute, Evan, I'll be with you. What do you want? Let me take that blue markings away. I could have made another stitch here if I wanted. I thought there was blue there, but I think it was a shadow. My apologies for the noise. That gun is not silent, that's for sure. So I could have put another one right here if I wanted, which I may go back and do that because I'm going to dress this up as I go along. So hang on.